Whether there is a God or not, his existence doesn't depend on what you believe or what I say. There is much to be skeptical of in this world, so it no longer surprises me to learn how many people don't really believe in anything. But I believe that our Lord was made flesh as Jesus Christ and died to redeem me, and you, and the Sorrows, even the Whitelegs, everyone. And I believe there is something beyond this rock, and this air, and this water around us. Something more that is waiting for us. I have been baptized twice, once in water, once in flame. I will carry the fire of the Holy Spirit inside until I stand before my Lord for judgment.
Welcome back. The Fallout series is no stranger to taking real-world customs and ideologies and looking at how these things would change and adapt in the post-nuclear wasteland. One of the most prominent themes in the Fallout universe, especially in the modern Fallout games, is Christianity, both in terms of how Christianity exists within the Fallout universe and from a metatextual sense in how the writers incorporate Christian concepts and references into Fallout lore. With that being said, today I wanted to explore Christianity's influence within the Fallout universe, and just to have an overview of the effect it's had on the series' writing. To begin with, we'll go over how Christianity has influenced Fallout on a metatextual level, from the perspective of the writers of Fallout's lore, before we explore Christianity as it exists within the universe of Fallout. The writers of the Fallout universe have often used the themes of Christianity extensively when writing for the series. This is most prevalent in the modern Fallout titles following Fallout 3, with the most well-known example of this being the usage of the passage 21:6 from the Book of Revelations in Fallout 3, which states that I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely, which in the Bible relates to defining Jesus' divinity as the first and last, along with him being able to quench those who are athirst for spiritual satisfaction. While the writers of Fallout 3 took this a little more literally in reference to the waters of life and their relation to Project Purity. There's also the themes of the apocalypse, which are present within the Book of Revelation, the significance of which to the Fallout universe I'm sure I don't need to explain. Furthermore, there are quite a few points, especially in New Vegas, which utilize biblical theming. For example, the quest Render unto Caesar quotes Matthew 22:21, where Jesus instructs his followers to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. This can also be seen in the Casino Gomorrah on the Strip, of course alluding to the city of the same name which was destroyed in Genesis. Along with that, there's the entirety of the Honest Hearts DLC, which is packed full of too many biblical references and Christian symbolism for me to cover in this short of a video. Suffice it to say, the writers of Fallout draw a lot of their inspiration from the themes of the Bible and Christianity when designing overall Fallout lore. And while that all may be very interesting from a game design and writing perspective, what I find the most interesting is Christianity as it exists within the universe of Fallout. Being that Christianity is both the world's largest religion and the most prominent religion in North America, it stands to reason that we would see the existence of Christianity after the events of Fallout's Great War. As a state of religion in the Fallout universe doesn't seem to have heavily diverged from our own by the time of 2077. And as far as we know, Christianity appears to be the only pre-war religion that is still being actively practiced by the denizens of the Waste. So far in the Fallout series we know of 2 locations which act as settlements founded by Christians for religious purposes. That being New Canaan, which we hear of in Fallout New Vegas' Honest Hearts DLC, and the Abbey of the Road, which is referenced within Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC. Starting with the most well-known out of these two, New Canaan was a settlement founded by the post-war denizens of Ogden, Utah, specifically for the Mormon population of that state, which you could argue aren't technically Christians since they don't subscribe to the basic tenets of the Nicene Creed, nor the Trinity. However, the New Canaanites by the time of Fallout seem to have adopted a more generally Protestant form of Christianity, with one of the current leaders of the New Canaanites referencing the Trinity in relation to the Sorrows tribe misunderstanding of their faith. Speaking of, the particular kind of Christianity practiced by the New Canaanites is apparently fairly common in post-war Utah, and was popular in certain areas of the southwest prior to the rise of Caesar's Legion. This is owed to the New Canaanites' emphasis on missionaries and spreading Christianity, especially the tribals of the regions they operate in. A side effect of this is that certain tribes began to form their own distinct theology based on either misinterpretation of Canaanite teachings or attempts to incorporate them into their existing religious beliefs. We see this in Honest Hearts, where the Sorrows fuse the ideals of the Father and the Son of the Trinity, taught to them by Daniel, with their own mythology around the Father in the Caves, also known as Randall Clark. On the topic of incorporating Christianity into existing cultures, we also have Joshua Graham's personalised 1911 pistol, known as Light Shining in Darkness. Like most things associated with Graham, it mixes the deeper aspect of his warlike personality with his new Canaanite faith, with it being a customised 1911 pistol with a skeletonized trigger and a hammer, all tied together with a snakeskin grip, the same as on Graham's belt. What ties this back to Graham's faith is the inscribed text on both sides of the pistol, with it being a Greek verse from the New Testament, specifically John 1:5, which can be translated into English as, "And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it." I'm honestly uncertain if this line has any specific connotations to the story or character around Graham, aside from the obvious connection around the darkness and light relating to his internal struggle with his nature. While Joshua Graham and the New Canaanites are certainly one of the fan-favourite uses of Christianity in Fallout, I also wanted to highlight some of the more obscure and less well-documented instances in the universe. Which leads me on to my next point. Point Lookout is one of my favourites when it comes to Fallout DLCs. This soggy peninsula is located in Maryland and is brimming with mystery and occult terror. However, there's one mystery that I find most intriguing, and that is the story of the Abbey of the Road, one of the most mysterious locations in the Fallout universe. The Abbey is ostensibly a fortified Catholic monastery located somewhere west of the Commonwealth. Being that the region known as the Commonwealth comprises the entire state of Massachusetts, it's likely that the Abbey itself is located either in the remains of the state of New York or Pennsylvania, as they were able to send at least one missionary to Point Lookout, which is near the tail end of the state of Maryland. On the topic of the missionaries, the vast majority of the information that we have about the Abbey comes from a woman named Marcella, who was sent by the Abbey in an attempt to recover religious artifacts that may be found in the region of Point Lookout, and to hopefully convert the local swamp folk of the region to Catholicism. It's from her that we learn that the location of the Abbey is kept as a closely guarded secret to preserve its safety, and that the Abbey itself is dedicated to preservation of Christianity, both in archiving and protecting religious relics and church history, along with sending missionaries to spread Christianity across the wasteland and to establish contact with other Christian groups across the wastes. The other operations are seemingly confined to the East Coast. It is them specifically who had knowledge of the Krivbekner, the unholy book coveted by Obadiah Blackhall, the Blackhall family, and worshipped by the swamp folk of Point Lookout as part of their Lovecraftian cult taught to their ancestors by the generations of the Blackhall family. This further solidifies the idea that the Abbey of the Road possesses not only knowledge of Christianity, but knowledge of other pre-war religions, such as the occult religion associated with both the Blackhall family and the Dunwich Company, as seen in Fallouts 3 and 4 at the Dunwich Borer buildings. Notably, it is Marcella who possesses the knowledge of both the nature of the Krivbekner as a heretical artifact to her, and its potential destruction by taking it to the aforementioned Dunwich Borers building in DC. Unfortunately, this so far is the majority of the information that we have on the Abbey, which I honestly find particularly disappointing, considering how much of a unique spin on Christianity it is to have a neo-Catholic Abbey located in post-war America. And I could absolutely see the Abbey making a return in a later Fallout game. Furthermore, on the topic of the Abbey's relation to other Christian organizations, Marcella herself made contact with the Catholic Church under Father Clifford, present in Rivet City, during her stay in the capital wasteland prior to coming to Point Lookout. And I think it's worth discussing the church in Rivet City due to their unique theology around their patron saint known as Saint Monica. Saint Monica's church is possibly the only Catholic church present in the capital wasteland, Located in Rivet City, by the time of Fallout 3, it is currently under the jurisdiction of Father Clifford, the acolyte in Diego. What we do know about the church's distinct theology comes primarily from the sermon delivered by Father Clifford about Saint Monica, which he does every Sunday. Rather than paraphrasing it, it would be best for you to hear for yourself.
Today we hear the story of Saint Monica. She was born in Great Lanta on the shores of the ocean. Her parents were both ghouls. Yes, that's right. I said ghouls. That she was conceived at all was a miracle. That she was born unafflicted was an even greater miracle. God tested Saint Monica. She did not lead an easy life. Sold into slavery by raiders, she was forced to sell her body. They took her only son, Aaron, from her and sold him. She prayed every night to God for his safety. She did not pray for herself, although her burden was great. Each night she would preach the word of God to the slavers. After 16 years, God provided a miracle. One of the slavers repented his wicked ways and helped her to escape. 4 years she looked for Aaron. 4 years she wandered the wasteland. God looked over her in those years. When she found her son, she found he was a wicked man. Aaron had overthrown his masters and taken their place. He was an owner of men. Aaron took his mother to be his slave, even knowing who she was, for Aaron blamed her for his painful early life. Each day, Aaron would think of a new and wicked trial to put her through. She would only smile at him and say, "I forgive you." Each morning, she would be miraculously healed as if nothing had happened. When Aaron truly realized her love and God's love was boundless, he flung himself at her feet and begged for Saint Monica's forgiveness. Aaron released all of his slaves, and they rejoiced. He repented all his wicked ways.
Now, for anyone familiar with Catholic theology, you'll probably be able to see the parallels between the Saint Monica of Rivet City's church and the real-world Christian saint known as Monica. While not the child of ghouls, Saint Monica was a mother of a sinful son, who she continued to attempt to convert to Christianity. Her son would later become Saint Augustine of Hippo, who would later become one of the most prominent Catholic theologians and philosophers, and one of the primary voices in the development of Western philosophy, some of his most well-known works being The City of God and Confessions. Saint Monica herself is a patron saint of surviving abusive marriages, disappointing children, victims of abuse, and converting relatives. The fact that the Saint Monica of Rivet City's church is also the patron saint of children and families implies that the Saint Monica discussed in Father Clifford's sermon is either a misreading of the story of Saint Monica by the post-war denizens of the capital wasteland, or it could potentially be an entirely separate individual who just happened to share the same name, Monica. As we don't have any evidence for her outside of Father Clifford's sermon, either answer is potentially likely. Regardless of the validity of Saint Monica, the Church of Rivet City does appear to follow general Roman Catholicism, with their practice of priests choosing celibacy, as seen in the acolyte Diego. They also appear to have some degree of apostolic succession, considering that Father Clifford is the only priest present in the capital wasteland, and that he himself must be the one to ordain Diego, the acolyte, to become the priest after him. However, on the same note of interpreting Catholicism in the wasteland, the last point I wanted to make was in relation to the Brotherhood of Steel, and their use of Catholic elements in their tradition. Now, while the Brotherhood is a largely agnostic organization, not particularly concerned with religion, by the time of the Fallout TV show, they seem to have begun to use the elements of Catholicism in their organization. Of course, there's the association with them as a modern-day knightly order, very much akin to those of the High Middle Ages in Europe, especially around the time of the First Crusade. This parallel appears to be part of the idea of the Brotherhood from its inception as a faction, detailed in the audio holotapes we can find in Fallout 76 by Roger Maxson, the founder of the Brotherhood. Here are a few select snippets of that, which I think will illuminate the idea a little bit further.
It was the knights and the scribes, after the fall of Rome, that protected what was left of Western civilization. So we are the new knights, and our role is similar. But we'll need more than names. We'll need new traditions, our own mythology, something people can believe in to their core. So far, our scribes have been tools to help protect our knights and maintain our bases. That needs to change. The Brotherhood is going to be more than an armed fighting force. We are going to be the guardians of civilization. So we have to grab every schematic, every holotape, every book, every goddamn note that holds the building blocks of the old world before it is too late. Our scribes will hold on to them, preserve them, perhaps even progress beyond them, and the knights will protect them like a hard shell around a precious seed.
In these tapes, Maxon draws parallels between his new brotherhood and the Catholic knights and scribes who, under the jurisdiction of the church, safeguarded much of the literature and scientific research of antiquity following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Aside from that, we can also see the Brotherhood taking on more of a pseudo-Catholic appearance by the time of the Fallout TV show. For example, them using the rank of cleric, which hadn't been seen as a Brotherhood rank up until this point, along with their usage of the last rites being said in Latin, which we can see before they attempt to execute Maximus during the climax of the series. Both the concept of the last rites and their being sung in Latin are very much linked to the Roman Catholic Church and their specific rites. Finally, in the TV show, just prior to the Brotherhood's expedition to recover the cold fusion tech from the Enclave, we can see the squad of Brotherhood knights, deployed by the Pridwin, being blessed by the cleric. The cleric in this case appears to be using the Brotherhood's version of a Catholic thurimbal. A thurimbal is a metal vessel suspended from chains, in which incense is burned during worship. Though it's typically associated with the Catholic Church, it's used by pretty much most other major denominations of Christianity, including Anglicans, Lutherans, and the Eastern Orthodox churches. A thurimbal is usually swung during worship to disperse incense and to bless people and objects. The Brotherhood appears to be doing the same to their knights and squires here, although it has to be said that their thurimbals appear to just be metal cans with holes drilled in them attached to a chain, but it amounts to the same thing, really. And with that, we round off this overlook into the influences that Christianity has had on the lore of the Fallout universe. Now, this isn't a comprehensive view, as the influences Christianity has had on the Fallout universe would be too great to condense into a single video. However, I hope that this small look has at least been illuminating who may not have considered these influences on Fallout lore. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to like and subscribe, and since there's nothing else, have a great rest of your day.